afternoon, Miss Ford here. And today I was thinking of making something easy but loved by everyone, and so we're going to do some chocolate chip cookies. We demonstrated the muffin method when we made our Belgian waffles, which is mixing all the dry ingredients together, mixing all the wet ingredients together in another bowl, and then adding them together. So that's the muffin mixing method. Other things are muffins that you use that method usually, or pancakes, things like that. So today with our cookies, we're going to be doing the creaming method, which is done by, usually the start is creaming some type of fat. In this case, we're going to use butter with sugar, some type of sugar, and we're going to be using granulated sugar or just regular sugar as you may know it, and also some brown sugar. Now some people think that brown sugar is a little healthier than regular sugar, but it's actually not. All it is regular sugar with a little bit of molasses in it. And the dark brown sugar, as opposed to the light brown sugar, for it to be dark, it just has a little bit more molasses. So you get that extra flavor. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to be using the Guittard chocolate chip cookie recipe. It's my absolute favorite, and my family's as well. I literally make this recipe at least once a week. When we were at the grocery store, I couldn't find the Guittard chocolate chips. Actually, the whole aisle was almost empty except for a few bags of the Ghirardelli, which is also a good chocolate. So we're going to be using those chips, but the Guittard chocolate chip cookie recipe, which is 2½ cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of soda, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of butter, or 2 sticks. So 2 sticks is equal to 1 cup. We have 3/4 cups of regular granulated sugar, 3/4 cups of brown sugar, 2 eggs, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and we're going to be using 2 cups or just 1 whole bag of those chocolate chips. So preferably we want our butter to be room temperature or just barely softened. If you're pulling these out of the refrigerator and you want to make cookies right away, you can soften them in the microwave, but you got to be careful. What I do is I'll put it in the microwave, and then every 4 seconds I'll turn the cube around, and I'll probably only do it for like 12 seconds or 15 seconds total, and then just let it soften a little bit more on the counter until it's perfect. It's really easy to melt your butter and have it too runny for your cookies, and then you'll end up with flat cookies. So you want the butter soft, but still on the cold side. So the best way is what I did is I've just left it on my counter for the last ½ hour, and it's just about perfect right now. I'd rather have it be too cold than too warm, because what's going to happen is when I get it in my mixer and I start mixing it with the paddle attachment and the sugar and start creaming it, that friction is going to warm up the butter even more and soften it a little bit. So it may just take a little bit more time to actually cream the butter and sugar together, but it'll get there. So before I even get going mixing, I have preheated my oven to 375 degrees, and I've made sure that my rack is right in the middle of my oven, because I'm going to stick my cookies right in the middle. And I'm only going to cook 1 tray at a time, because that ensures that they all cook nice and evenly. My oven's not very good at distributing heat. So in my bowl, I have my butter and my sugars, both of them, the brown and the white, and I am just going to start creaming. So it's started to come together, but you're not done yet. You want it to be nice and light and fluffy. Now, I'm still not done yet. I'm still creaming it together. It's a good point to stop and scrape the sides of the bowl down. This makes sure that everything's getting nice and evenly incorporated. Okay, so it's looking nice and light and fluffy now. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding my eggs and the vanilla. I like to add my eggs 1 at a time, otherwise it's just too much liquid in with the fat, and it's a little harder for it to come together, because eggs are actually mostly water. So I'm going to add 1 at a time, going in there. scrape the sides, and then I'm going to add the second egg. I added all my liquid ingredients because I added the vanilla in with the eggs. And now I'm going to add the dry ingredients. So I'm going to start with the flour, and I need 2.5 cups of flour. So just like I showed you in the last video with the waffles, you want to scoop your flour in gently. You don't want to pack it in. Otherwise you'll have really dense cookies, and you don't want really dense cookies. And then scrape off the top. Okay, so I have 2.5 cups of flour in there, and now I want 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of salt. I always measure my salt over a different container, because if I measure it over my cookies, I know what's going to happen is I'm going to accidentally over pour my salt, and then I'm going to end up with really salty cookies. Okay, then I'm just going to mix this. Now, when I was creaming the butter and the sugars together, I wasn't concerned about over mixing. But at this point, I don't want to over mix my cookies because I don't want to develop that gluten, which is the protein found in wheat. I don't want to develop that in my cookies because I don't want to have really dense, hard, crunchy cookies. I want nice, soft, delicate cookies. So I'm just going to mix this until it's just combined. And stop. I started on slow, on the low speed, because I didn't want that flour to get pushed out of the bowl. So now, at this point, I'm just going to add my chocolate chips, and if you wanted any nuts at this point, you would add those as well. And I'm just going to mix this just for a brief second so that the chocolate chips get dispersed evenly. And I'm done. Ready to scoop. Okay. So my oven temperature is ready. It's at 375, and my cookie dough is ready to be scooped out. I'm going to use just a little cookie scooper. If you don't have one of these, totally fine. Just use a couple of spoons, and you can scoop them out into your desired size. The thing you want to remember is to make sure that they are all the same size on the same tray. So if you want to make a bunch of small ones, make sure all the small ones are on one tray, because the smaller they are, the less time they'll take to cook. If you want to make a bunch of big ones, that's awesome too. Just make sure that they're on the same tray, they're all the same size, because those will take longer to cook. On average, these cookies take about 10 minutes for me when I use this size scooper. I give them a little space in between each cookie so they have room to grow. And they are ready for the oven. Okay, so I've left my cookies in there for about 14 minutes because my husband likes them a little bit on the darker side. So I'm gonna pull those out. Now, all of the techniques you guys learned today for the chocolate chip cookies can be used really with any other drop cookie that you're going to be making. So I'm going to put this other tray in while I'm talking to you. So I'm just going to let them sit on this cooling rack for a minute or two, and then I'm on the hot tray, sorry, and then I'm going to move them over to my cooling rack. So you guys can use these techniques, the creaming method, for most any drop cookies, and you know how to do it right.